Welcome to A Healthy Bite. You're one nibble closer to a more satisfying way of life, a healthier you, and bite-sized bits of healthy motivation. Now let's dig in on the dish with Rebecca Huff.
Hey, it's Rebecca, and today we are here with Paula Rizzo. She has two books. Is it two?
Two, yes.
Two books. They're both about list making, but they're different. So I would like it if you would tell us a little bit about the differences between the two books, as well as your background. I know you have a lot of different hats that you wear. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been doing and how you came to write these books.
Sure. Lots and lots of lists. I can't help myself. So the first book is called Listful Thinking, Using Lists to be More Productive, Highly Successful, and Less Stressed. And the second book is called Listful Living, A List-Making Journey to a Less Stressed You. So they really do go hand in hand. But the first book is the 101. Why should you make lists? How can you do it better? In all aspects of your life. The second one is a journal. So you're meant to write in it. And it really focuses on your productivity style and your stress levels and helping you to create a less stressed life. Because so often we put too much on our plate and too much on our to-do list, and then we get burnt out. And burnout is a real thing these days. And so I want to make sure people do not burn out and are actually enjoying their lives and feeling, less stressed. So my background is as a television producer. I've spent close to 20 years as a TV producer in New York City. And most recently, I was a senior health producer at Fox News Channel for over a decade. And so I did all kinds of health and wellness stories for them. We focused on stress a lot and those kinds of things. And so I'm thrilled to be able to chat with you and to help people to be less stressed, because it can really manifest in so many ways in the body, right? It can body, mind, soul. Stress will mess you up. So let's not have that happen.
That's for sure. I think stress is such a huge contributor to health problems. And I was reading statistics, and what was it, like 90% of hospital visits or something are related to stress?
Yes. Stress.org found that up to 90% of all doctor-related visits are something that has to do with stress.
That's insane. We're busying ourselves to death. So in the journal, you're talking about how we can get our lives in order once and for all. And you're talking about putting the right things on our list. So this isn't just a list about, all of the many things that we need to get done today. This is a list that actually doesn't make us feel chaotic. It's a list making that makes us feel calmer. How do we go about doing that?
Yeah, so it's much more intentional list making, because so often we just keep putting everything on there and everything everybody else wants us to do, and we say yes to everything. And I know from personal experience that will make you completely burn out. And also, I had a very dramatic way of learning to slow down. My appendix burst about a year after my first book came out. And at that point, it was very dramatic and difficult time. And I was in the hospital for 9 days. I was out of work for 6 weeks. I lost 12 pounds. Like, it was a big ordeal in my life. Everything had to come off my list. Everything. And guess what? The world still spun. Everything was still fine. And I was, so there's some ego involved in the list that we have too, that you think I'm the only person who could possibly ever do these things. Incorrect. Actually, other people can take it over, or some things don't even matter. So after that experience, I started to look at what was getting on this list. What is really making it onto the list that I really, truly need to be there?
Yeah, that story that you told about when your appendix burst, it really resonated with me, my own experiences. And my oldest daughter had medical leave where she was out of work for a while, and she experienced the exact same thing you said. I was like, this is so crazy. I sent my daughter a picture. I was like, look at this. She went through the same thing where people would say, oh, I bet you got a lot of stuff done on your medical leave. And your response was, no.
Yeah, no, I'm literally healing. It's amazing. The body needs to heal. I couldn't even watch TV sometimes, or even reading a book. I thought, oh, I'll catch up on some reading. I couldn't even do that. Now you really need to rest. That is what your body needed.
Yeah. So was it hard for you to make yourself rest, or was it just like, I have to lay down? I can't.
It was both, so
Hmm.
it was very much where you think you can do it. Like your mind is like, hey, I want to go do this. I want to go do that. And then your body is like, we're just not doing that. There's part
Right.
of that. But then there's part of as you start to get better and you feel like you can do things, to remind yourself to not overdo it. And that's the hard part, because at first your body like won't adjust, and then after that you're able to do whatever you want. Like, here I am back again doing the second book now, and I have to remind myself, don't overschedule yourself. Make sure you don't, like, this stuff is not going to go away. As if you don't do every interview in the first 2 weeks, it doesn't mean it's going to, you're never going to be able to reach audiences or sell the book or promote it or whatever. Sometimes you just have to really remind yourself and step out of that place of kind of like frantic, oh gosh, if I don't do it now, it's never going to happen. It's just not true.
Right. And you had said in there, and I think this is a lesson that obviously you have learned, and I'm still working on it, but you said rest is the new hustle. I love that.
Yes. It is
Um,
really a good reminder. Every time you think you're going to, like, oh, I got to do this, I got to, and it's sort of like, you need to rest, you need to decompress, you need to find out what it is that will help you with your stress levels and self-care, and be able to put that on the list, right? That's the most important part, is to give yourself that downtime in between what you're doing.
Yeah, and that's what you did. I loved it. I had written down, you had a little section, and this was my absolute favorite, but it was the page, A Matter of Health, where you had, readers to do this activity. And I think your book is almost like, those activity books that you used to get as a kid, but
Yes.
it's an activity book for grown-ups.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
I was like, this is fun. Make the number 8 and make some doodles, and oh, this is fun. But this page was my favorite. You talk about having us write down the things that we would do to stay mentally and physically healthy. And then you had like the little boxes every day, twice a week, every week, every month, quarter, twice a year, once a year, and so on and so forth. And I thought, oh my goodness, we all talk about self-care so much. You hear it all the time now, but how many of us actually make an action plan
Right.
for how we're going to do this?
Yeah. Very few people. People get self-care very, very wrong. Everyone, it's a big buzzword. Everybody knows it's a big deal. Everybody knows it's good for them, but they think it has to be expensive, and they think it has to be time consuming, and they don't actually make the time to do it. So none of that works, right? So it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be a week-long vacation. It doesn't have to be a $300 massage. It could literally be drinking a cup of tea, calling a friend, reading a chapter of a book that you really love, going on a virtual vacation, right? Picking one location that you've never been to before, go on Google Maps, time yourself for 10 minutes and just zoom around looking to see, what you can create and see it, and go on a little vacation.
I
It's a
love
little
that.
downtime where you can just like de-stress and not worry about what you're in the middle of or whatever it is. But oftentimes people don't do that. They just fill their time with more things. So to be able to, another example that I use a lot actually is when I go on a trip, whether it be for business or pleasure, I block off the next day as much as I possibly can. I can't always do that, but I try not to schedule calls or meetings or whatever it is, because I need that time to decompress.
Mhm.
Sure, could I jump right back into working? 100%. Have I done it? Do I do it? Yes. But I notice that I'm way better when I give myself a buffer, that I don't have to go right back in the very next day.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it is harder because the whole adjusting, and then if there's jet lag, you've got that to
Yeah.
deal with. And just, the whole thing about any kind of traveling, whether it's for business or pleasure, I feel like you need that kind of buffer zone on the beginning and the end so that you
Yeah.
can take care of yourself. But I loved that page, and that was one of the pages that I'm like, I'm definitely doing this exercise. When I
I love
started
it.
at the beginning, I was like, doodle, really? Does she really want me to write in this book? She can't mean it.
I
And then you said,
know.
I really mean it, and then you told the story
I
about the
want you to
librarian.
write.
Oh, okay, we've got to
Yes.
write in the book, which it was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I did love that. That was my favorite in the whole book. And then I also liked, you had said, you mentioned a couple of quotes about Tim Ferriss and Marie Kondo.
Yeah.
Will you tell? I don't
Yes,
want to give away
yes.
too many spoilers about the book,
No,
but
of course. It's fine. Yeah. I mean, I talk about this stuff all the time. So Tim Ferriss, I have like a love-hate relationship with Tim Ferriss. I think what he, 4-hour work weeks, cool idea, but like, can it really happen? I don't know. But I do appreciate, his zest for efficiency. And one of the things he had always said is the way that he makes decisions. It's very like, if it's not a hell yeah, it's a no. And so that's very definitive. And I think that's great because I love rules. And I think that really helps people to be able to decide in the moment, am I going to do this or not? Because we're people pleasers. Everybody wants to say yes to everything. We want to be helpful. We want to say yes. We want to show up. We want to be the person that gets asked back. People are too afraid to say no. And then you take on too much stuff and then you feel guilty and then you feel overrun. So I have really learned to be able to take a step back and say no with grace. And I look at it more like Marie Kondo. I look to see, okay, is this speaking engagement or is this podcast or does this spark joy? And if it sparks joy, I do it. And if it doesn't spark joy, I say no. Or, I say not right now, or maybe in the future or whatever, So that's how I like to look at it because it's a really easy way to make a decision fast. And I think that's the best way to make decisions of what gets on the list. Because you really want to tap into your gut. Like, what did I feel? Did I really want to do it? Or am I doing it out of obligation?
yes, I experienced this recently. And there's so many good things. It's really hard because, and being an advocate for so many different really good causes, it's sometimes, and I do the same thing. And had this one situation where I was going to make this commitment for a year to something that would be a lot. It would be a lot of time and attention. And I was saying yes to it because I felt like, oh, if I don't do it, I felt that obligation. And then I finally realized, oh my goodness, I'm saying yes when I really mean to say no. What am I doing?
Yeah.
So
yeah. And
I
then look at all
definitely
the
think,
other things you have to say no to, right? I mean, it's like because you say yes to that one thing, then you have to say no to all these other things. And part of it could be you, right? But part of it could be you're saying no to your own self-care or sleep. If you're doing something that's at night and your priority right now is to get more sleep or to be more rested or to, really control, whatever, it's difficult. So you really, to backtrack on it, you really need to have your priorities straight. Does this align with my priority right now?
yeah. And I think that's the point to remember is that for every yes, there's an understood no. My therapist taught me that. And when she said it to me, I was like, oh my goodness, wow. I mean, that to do this, it means you can't do that. But to really think, okay, if I say yes to this, what am I saying no to? And that just to be mindful about that, I think really does give you a new perspective to saying no when you really need to be saying no.
Yeah, for sure. And people don't, right away whether or not you can do something. People say also often, well, I'll try to make it. I'll try to be there. How are you going to be at that event when you're going to be downtown at some other event or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, you can't do it. So just come out and be like, I wish I could do it, but I can't. So they can invite somebody else or give them somebody else to invite, whatever, you know what I mean? It's much easier for you, for the person asking you, if you're just very definitive, very quick about it.
Yes, I agree 100%. And it's a lot easier said than done, but the more we practice it, the better we get at it. And our self-confidence goes up by leaps and bounds whenever we actually practice doing that. But so you said that you were in the health kind of industry. You did stories about health, like on the news, or can you tell us a little bit about
so it
that?
was absolutely. Yeah. So for the news, so I worked for Fox News Channel and I produced all their health and wellness content. And I interviewed experts like JJ Virgin, Deepak Chopra, Jillian Michaels, people who are powerhouses in the health and wellness world. Along with, I did a lot of stories with doctors and patients about different stories. So I would cover anything from, a brand new surgery to a fitness class, where it could be anything in between. I covered alternative medicine, I covered, traditional medicine, all of that stuff. And so it was really fun. I mean, it was great because it everything you could sort of use for yourself, when we would talk to somebody to talk about, what are some alternative remedies for the flu? It's like, great, good to know. I could use this for myself, so that's why I really enjoyed it so much.
Right. That's what I was going to ask you. I bet you learned a ton when you were doing that.
Yeah, for sure. And you become an expert, you become an expert in a short amount of time on like lots of different topics. So it was very, very fun. But, once I actually, worked in hospitals a lot. I would go there to shoot videos and to interview doctors, and I was in ERs and ORs, but I had never been there as a patient. So when I was back, when my appendix burst, it was a totally different perspective. I actually took away from that more empathy and sympathy for the patients and the people who I was doing these stories with. Because, a lot of times it sounds like people are complaining, or it sounds like, oh, well, couldn't you just get up, like you just like, it's not to be believed unless you've actually experienced it. And so I think that was a really big lesson for me too, to really like put yourself in someone else's shoes and see how it is.
Yeah. So, in your experience with these different jobs you've had, I know you brought a lot of that knowledge that you gained during the time that you were doing all this health coverage. So, how did you bring that into your new book?
So it very much is about, being a TV producer is about timing and knowing how long 30 seconds is, knowing how long a minute is, because that's how long these segments are. You know what I mean? It has to be exact. And so I have through the years been able to really have this skill of knowing how long something is going to take. Most people don't think in seconds like that. And so in this book, I really try to get people to time themselves, to time how long does it actually take you to do certain tasks, because we either overestimate or underestimate. We think, oh, it'll take 5 minutes and it takes you 20 minutes, or you think it's going to take you 2 hours and it takes 15 minutes. So to really know how long these things take you is so helpful, because then you can stick it into your day and know, oh, I can actually get more done than I thought. And so there's exercises in the book that, play really on, my experience as a TV producer through the years and things that have made me successful there that then I've used in my personal life that I'm like, this really works. So let me share it with some people.
Oh, so that's how you came up with it. Because you had all of these exercises, like you say, where I basically write down, all of the things that I do in the day, and then assigning them to the days and how long they take and how many
Yep.
days you do it. All of that. It just, because like I said before, I really felt like, okay, I'm a pretty decent list maker, and I love lists. I'm a big fan of lists. And so I know I'm going to love this book, but I was surprised when I was reading it that I needed to tweak my lists a little bit.
Uh-huh. And also like when you want to do certain things. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's really helpful to know to your productivity. Like when do I feel most jazzed up to do certain kinds of tasks? So sometimes, people think, oh, if you become a morning person, you'll get more done. It just doesn't happen. It's going to make you cranky if you're not a morning person. I know, because I've tried.
Mm-hmm.
So, for me, I have a slow morning. I have to like kind of get wound up to get started to do work, actual like, what I'm doing before is really, reading the newspaper, drinking tea. Like I do a lot of that stuff beforehand. And then I start podcasts, interviews, whatever I'm doing. I'm a media trainer and coach now. So I work with a lot of clients on their on-camera presence and things like that. So it can be draining through the day. You're talking a lot, you're expressing things with people. So I need time in between to relax. And now I know that about myself. So I stack my day like a newscast almost in a way. And then it's very much designed for me. And what works for me isn't going to work for you. You have to tap into how you work best and then design your life that way.
Right. And that's what the beauty is about your listful living, is that this isn't you telling us your method. This
Right.
is you coaching us through figuring out our own method, basically, of how to do our things in the best way for us. Not because, you've read that self-help book before. That's like, okay, this is how you do it. You get
Yeah.
up early and you do this. All the successful people get up before 5 a.m.
Yep.
So I thought that was really neat, is that you're taking into account that each person is their own unique individual, and we all have our own way that we are more successful. And so how do we bring all of this together? So by the end, say someone who's never made a list, or they're just not the list making type. They just kind of
Mm-hmm.
take things as it happened. They're kind of a spontaneous personality. And
Uh-huh.
someone
Yes.
like that get this book, do you feel like that this will improve upon their systems, or is this for people that kind of already have the list thing going and just need to tweak it, or both, or?
I do think that it's both, because oftentimes people who are creatives, let's say, who don't want to make lists because they feel like that will restrict them,
Mm-hmm.
or they're in the moment and they don't, I forget to do that, or I write it down, then I don't look at it again, or whatever it is. I found that those types of people actually feel more free once they do create lists and they do some of these activities, because then they have a little bit of a constraint to say, okay, now I can be even more creative within this, 2-hour window or whatever, to be able to give themselves the time to do it. So I do find that they end up coming around and becoming list people, and to be able to do this. But it's, talking about your own productivity style and how you like to work best. Look, I make lists of lists for everything. You don't have to do that, right? You can do it for just the specific things that you want. And some people just do it for work, or just do it for travel, or just to, I find that when you spill it out into different parts of your life, it really does help. But you don't have to go so overboard and look at it like, oh, this is going to be such work, right? This is very much designed for you. And people often ask me, what pen do you use? What notebook do you use? And I'm always like, it doesn't matter, and they hate that answer because they just want the answer. Just tell me what pen to buy. And the truth is, it doesn't matter. I could give you this pen and you could hate it. And then what? You're not going to be productive. So you have to figure out what works for you.
Yeah, that's what I took away from your book, is that you're basically telling people that, here's kind of a blueprint, and you take this blueprint and you make it your own and come up with your lists. And, but why? I guess this is the overall question, basically what it boils down to. Why is list making so healthy?
Well, first off, I look at it as like an instant stress reliever,
Mm-hmm.
because when you have all this stuff going on in your head and you think, I have a million things to do, when you sit down and you just like get it all out, put it down, oftentimes it's not as bad as you thought. And you look and you're like, oh, you know what? I actually didn't have a zillion things. I was just making that anxiety worse in my head. But now that it's here, I can handle it now. Or I can say, okay, this doesn't actually need to get done today. So it really does give you that relief. And when you are going through your day and you're able to check things off or scratch it off or whatever, there's such a great sense of accomplishment. And then it just makes you want to do more. And, so you get a little bit of endorphin hit there too. But it really does help you to look at your life and your day and feel like you have some control over it. Because you look at the list and you think, especially with the to-do list, right? Like, here's my intention for the day. Here's what I need and want to get done, rather than here's what everybody else, is going to come at me with and have me do all their things. This is what I have on my list for today.
So that's not just me, because I was thinking, okay,
no,
because I do that sometimes. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have all these things to do. I'm just so overwhelmed. I have a million things, and then I'll start being snappy with my family, and I'll start feeling like my heartbeat kind of speeds up a little bit, and then I'm like, okay, what do I need to do? Oh, okay. And because I think it just starts to feed on itself when you do, maybe, and I always do have things to do, but like you were saying, being mindful of the ones that, how you prioritize, like, really, what would happen if I didn't do this, this, and this?
Right.
One would probably even know. I mean, I think a lot of people, like creators, influencers, and, I know you have a couple of courses, and I'm sure you have a ton more information about this, but I think a lot of times we're like, oh, I've got to go schedule all my social media. I've got to go do this. I've got to do that. No one cares if you don't do that.
Yeah,
Really.
no one cares. Right. It's pressure you put on yourself. That is it. Yeah.
It is. It's totally the pressure you put on yourself. So what is an action that someone can do right now? Say they ordered your book and they have 2-day shipping and they're going to get your book in 2 days. What's the thing that they can do right now to get started with listful living?
Yeah. Well, I would say the to-do list is, of course, the ultimate of all lists. There's many other lists that you can make and that I walk you through and all of that. But I would start with the exercise of doing a to-do list for tomorrow, today. And so that's how I end every single day, is that I think through, what do I have to do tomorrow? What are the things that I have the time and the resources to do tomorrow? So it's not absolutely everything, but it's how can I get this done in the time that I have tomorrow? and with the resources that I have. So you're not going to write things on that list like write book. You're never going to write a book in one day. So what is the small piece of that book that you could write? Or, what is the research you need to do for that book or whatever it is? Put that on the list. That's the thing that gets put down there. So if you do that the night before, when you come into your office, your desk, your whatever the next day, you can look and say, okay, this is my roadmap for the day. I might get derailed, but at least I know what I had intended to do. So I can keep myself focused and back on track. So when you do get, distracted or whatever, you can look back and say, okay, what is it that I actually really need to be doing right now? So you set yourself up for success the night before. That's the way I like to do it. Maybe you want to do it in the morning or whatever, but I find that mornings are a little bit crazy and get kind of hectic. It's nice to sort of have it there already for you waiting.
Okay. I love that idea. And it is hard to resist the urge to ask you, do you use a planner? Do you use a spiral notebook?
I know.
It's very hard to resist the urge to ask you that because, you're like the list genius.
I know. Well, it changes. I have to say it changes. I used to, for a very long time, I only wrote in pencil, because that sort of worked for me. I was really into it. That's when I worked at Fox. I would write in pencil all the time. And I would write on reporter notebooks, like the skinny ones with the spirals on top. Those were my notebooks. Then for a while, I was using steno pads, which are like a little bit bigger. And they also have the spirals. I'm left-handed, so the spirals are in my way when I write. So I like them on top. And then now I use pen, just whatever pen. It doesn't even matter, But the thing is with making lists on paper, when you write something down, you're 33% more likely to do it. So it really does like solidify something in your mind, and just having it there is like, it's a real, even if it's just go get milk. I mean, it just solidifies it. So you actually go do it. It makes you more likely to do it.
That makes a lot of sense. Now I'm going to start writing down more things.
Yes.
Yeah. Cause I want to increase the odds that I'll actually do the things that I want to
Accountability. Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on here. So you have so much wisdom, and I know you have your books and then you have your courses. Do you coach people, or how do you work with people?
So for productivity and list making, I do have an online course where it's a group program, and it's called Listful Thinking Masterclass. And that really helps to walk you through a lot of the stuff that's in the book. I actually created that after my first book, Listful Thinking. And a lot of that has ended up in Listful Living, because it does help a lot of this time tracking and those kinds of things. So it's a very good complement. And so that's the books and speaking, and that's what I do for productivity. And then my main business is as a media trainer and coach. So I help experts and authors and entrepreneurs and people who are looking to get into the media. And so I help to coach them how to pitch media better and how to present on camera, better. If they're doing interviews, I help to prep them for interviews when their books come out, or, if they're just looking to be out there in a bigger way. And also to create their own videos, because now anybody can create a video wherever they are. You can just use your phone, and sometimes that intimidates people, or they want to know how to do it better. And so I coach people one-on-one to do that. And I also have group programs and things like that to help people get out there in a bigger way and make a big impact.
Perfect. And where can people find more information about that?
Sure. So for the book, if you go to listfulliving.com, you can find the book and get on my email list for productivity and list making. And then if you go to paularizzo.com, there is a checklist, because I just couldn't help myself. There's a checklist to become a go-to media expert. And that is all about my media training and coaching. And I give a lot of, free advice there as well on how you can be out there in a bigger way.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Paula. I love your book because lists make me so happy. I know that not everyone is, a list maker, but once they get a hold of your book, I think even the most spontaneous, creative souls can become list-loving people. So
I hope so. Yes. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks for listening. Please rate and review so other people can learn about this podcast. Find out more about sleep, hygiene, eating healthy, tasty recipes, zero-waste lifestyle, and lots more on thatorganicmom.com. Help us spread the word. Be blessed and stay healthy.